The Congress is calling it democracy disqualified. Over the next 2 days, you'll have press conferences by Congress leaders across India. Joining me now is Congress MP Shashi Tharoor. Mr. Tharoor, thank you very much for your time here on Mirror Now. Now, the Congress has protested over the last 2 days. We'll see press conferences. We've seen people, MPs, show up in Parliament in black. Can I just ask you what you think this satyagrah and all these protests will achieve, given the fact that the government, whether you like it or not, has a brute majority?
Everyone is sitting together on satyagraha. It hasn't faced the opposition, which has almost unanimously come out in support and defense of Rahul Gandhi and the Congress on this matter. And finally, it is meant to say we are not prepared to let our democracy go under. This is essentially about being democracy. And if we were to look very simply at the question, Shreya, and I will ask it to you very bluntly, I realize many of the people watching this show may not be true blue supporters of the Congress party, may not be admirers of Rahul Gandhi or any other individual leader. But I will simply ask them one question. If you value India's democracy, is it good for India's democracy if the principal opposition leader, even a principal opposition leader, is disbarred from raising his voice in Parliament and indeed is threatened with being locked up for a couple of years? I mean, we're talking about a time when our Prime Minister tells the whole world that India is the mother of democracy. That's a slogan that you can see dotting Delhi's streets with posters and billboards for the G20. Is this the way a mother would behave towards her valued child, democracy?
Mr. Tharoor, this is the logic coming in from the BJP. They're saying the law is taking its own course. We have nothing to do with it. So why are you holding the entire parliament ransom for essentially what the courts have decided? Why are you questioning the institutions in this country now over one case and one disqualification?
You know, I would be inclined to accept the fairness of that proposition were it not for a few slightly odd circumstances. This is a case that was begun on 2019 about a case begun in Surat about a speech made in Karnataka in Kolar. You then have the complainant getting a couple of comments from the judge that lead him to believe that he doesn't have much hope of this case going very far. So he actually rushes off to the High Court and stays the case, right? And the stay is granted in March of 22. So a year later, or 11 months later, Rahul Gandhi makes a speech in Parliament, which was then expunged from the record of Parliament. And within 9 days of that episode, the complainant withdraws his own request for a stay in the Gujarat High Court. The High Court accedes to that request. A judge suddenly has been changed. There is a new judge in Surat who decides to resume the trial. Within a month, that trial is done and dusted. The trial court convicts Rahul Gandhi, hands down a maximum sentence, a maximum possible sentence for this offense. And within 24 hours of this judgment, the Lok Sabha Secretariat disqualifies Rahul Gandhi. Now, there's something about the simple dating of events that raises some genuine doubts as to whether this was just a straightforward, a routine sort of criminal defamation case settled by the courts and so on, or whether there was something else behind it. In any case, the net effect is something that the government that is committed to protecting democracy ought to be concerned about. The government could itself join an appeal saying that this sentence is excessive for such a trivial offense. But we don't want to see a major opposition leader kicked out of Parliament. Whatever. I mean, instead, the government is rejoicing. And to my mind, the government has probably got plenty to rejoice about from its point of view. From our point of view, its government has given us a couple of gifts. It's got Rahul Gandhi absolutely back in the limelight and the center of people's attention. We saw his press conference yesterday. He's fighting fit. The public is broadly sympathetic to him. And it's also given us an element of opposition unity we haven't seen in a long time, because a number of parties which have so far not joined Congress on a common platform and have in fact tended to keep their distance from even Congress-coordinated opposition activities, have all come out with statements supporting the Congress in this. So you've seen Arvind Kejriwal in Delhi, you've seen Mamata Banerjee in Bengal, you've seen KCR in Hyderabad, and many others, including, of course, others who already are our allies or well disposed to us, all expressing their solidarity. This is an amazing gift to the opposition, so we'll be grateful to the government, but I do wonder whether it is entirely what the government intended.
Okay, so speaking of the government deployed Ravi Shankar Prasad to do the batting on its behalf. And he said something in Hindi, so I'm going to quote him exactly. He says, "Nakhun toota nahi ki shahadat pe chal diye," which means that nothing has happened. This is the Congress party creating an unnecessary hue and cry. Why are they cribbing about the law? They should be challenging the law. Question is, why has his sentence not been challenged in a higher court? The conspiracy theory that the BJP is floating is that they want to use this, the Congress wants to use this in the upcoming Karnataka elections.
No, I'm sure. Look, I'm sitting in Thiruvananthapuram and not in Delhi, but my expectation is the government will, the Congress party will challenge this on Monday in the High Court. It would be crazy not to, because the judgment is flawed in many obvious ways. I mean, you quoted something in Hindi. Let me quote Rahul Gandhi's lines in Hindi from Kolar. He said, "Acha ek chota sa sawal hai, in sab ke naam, in sab choron ke naam, Modi, Modi, Modi kaise hai?" He didn't actually say that all Modis are chores. He simply said, in the name of these three, in sab ke naam. And who are the in sab? He went on to say, Nirav Modi, Lalit Modi, Narendra Modi. Now, you and I may not have said it in quite the same way, but the meaning cannot be distorted. The meaning is very clear. These three, why is it they all have this common surname? Now, you may then draw whatever inference you'd like to draw, but it's a bit of a stretch to suggest that he was saying all Modis are thieves, as the court so quickly concluded.
Are you expecting the Election Commission to call a bypoll in Wayanad anytime soon? I ask you this question because they have already burned their fingers in the case of the Lakshadweep MP. But in any case, is the Congress party expecting an announcement on the bypolls?
Well, I think if the appeal is filed, the Election Commission could take its time to go ahead with bypolls. I mean, they haven't even called the Karnataka elections dates yet, even though we all know that the elections in Karnataka are due and that a new government has been sitting there by the second week of May. So very clearly, they are working to their own schedule. I hope that they won't just suddenly drop everything post-haste to declare an election in Wayanad. Let them go ahead and work in their normal pace.
Mr. Tharoor, what a pleasure it is to have you on the show. Thank you very much for joining us here on Mirror Now and taking our questions. Can I quickly ask you one quick question? Ever since the sentencing, post that, the disqualification, one of the things that you've heard from the Congress leaders is that, this is Om Shanti to democracy. This is the murder of democracy. Isn't that a bit of a stretch, given that this is something that has happened to just one individual, to say that democracy has been murdered because one individual has been sentenced to 2 years and then subsequently disqualified from parliament? Isn't that a bit excessive?
No, I don't agree, because frankly, what many of us felt about this decision was that it crossed a certain line. It crossed a line that we don't expect Indians to cross. Look, we've had a country where the democratic practice of respect across lines. You've heard, I'm sure, this was going around WhatsApp again last week, Atal Bihari Vajpayee talking about his immense respect for Nehru, Indira Gandhi, and Rajiv Gandhi, and how each of them helped him at different stages of his career. He was their political opponent, but they didn't treat him as an enemy. They treated him as somebody whom, in fact, Nehru actually said when he was a young man, "You'll be prime minister one day," prophetically. And Rajiv Gandhi included him in a delegation to the General Assembly in New York in order to ensure that he could get medical treatment that was not in those days available in India. And Vajpayee spoke of this with tremendous respect and affection. See, that was Indian democracy. You don't go around conniving at measures and then celebrating them afterwards, that lock up your principal opponent in jail. And as I said, I think if you have something where, frankly, the punishment is obvious. I mean, if it's a murder case, if it's an open and shut corruption case like the fodder scam or whatever, then you can say, well, there were specific circumstances and it was nothing to do with democratic credentials. But when you have a statement which could have been interpreted both ways, and which is, frankly, by the standards of Indian political rhetoric. I mean, I've been at the receiving end of a fair amount of political abuse in my 14 years in politics. I'm sure that many in the BJP have been in politics longer than me and have heard much worse. And certainly many in the BJP have expressed much worse. To have this statement attract a maximum sentence just in order to ensure a disqualification, to me, stinks to high heaven. This is not really just about an individual or a party. It's really about democracy. It's about somehow changing the rules, the structure, the convention, the practices by which our democracy conducts itself.
Mr. Tharoor, always good to have you on the show. Thank you very much for joining us here on Mirror Now. Thank you very much indeed. A quick look at what